Okay, so we're going to begin with a kind of a direct focus on using the props to facilitate the elevation and the feeling of the ribs spreading out. But not only the ribs, and the core of the body, but really hydrating all the tissues that go up into the throat, and then to relax the brain. So play with this beginning setting, how you're going to situate yourself across the back, across the bolster. So you're going to lean back, and when you lean back, you put your sandbag nearby. I don't want you to have to put it on your body. If you're not using a sandbag, you can pass on that instruction anyhow. But when you lean back, you're going to want to lift up your pelvis and tuck a block under the back of the pelvis. And use this core time right here. This is a bit of a core sensible position to start. So the back of my ribs, feel the cushion that I'm on. And then I'm going to add a sandbag to the front of the hips, okay, to start. So the sandbag offering will be in multiple layers. You're certainly going to lower your head back to your blankets, I hope. And first thing, feel how the shoulders roll back simply with the gravitational motion of this position. Okay, so if the feeling of the waist is taking over your consciousness, keep that sandbag so you can center the core body, but feeling, especially in the very center chamber of the abdominal muscles, the very thick muscles, they're kind of moving your ribs up. And then the position of the shoulders is key here. So I notice if I ask myself to roll and let my shoulders move down, you know, usually later in the day, I would use one blanket. In the beginning of the day, I haven't quite had as much warm-up time. You might want the 2 blankets under your head, but if you really are working with the chest opening, you could remove a blanket for this first one and have one under your head. As long as your shoulders can actually roll back. Right, so if I remove a blanket, my shoulder tissue might be able to drop back further. It's up to you. So start with the knees bending. The feet have a span of a little wider than hips distance, no wider than your mat, however. And then where the sand goes could be stay on the hips for now, okay? Or it could be up across the ribs. If you're going to straighten your legs soon enough, you might go for it now. And then those of you with the sand interest on your thigh lids, place the sand across your thighs. So door 1 is thighs, legs straight. Door 2 is knees bent, sand on the ribs, okay? So in this first phase, we'll hold our belt overhead and feeling where the hands grasp onto the belt and the sensation of hydrating the tissues across the front from elbow to elbow and from the shoulders motioning back. Kind of tricky to keep your shoulders back and not hypertone when you hold the belt. So I want you to spread the hands out as far out on the belt as you can and feel the elbows soften down so you can notice the chest and even the upper back awareness. Okay, so feeling and sensing as you drop into this first pose, the circulation of your breath, the feeling of it moving in the center of the body, and allowing it to basically spread out to the extremities, hydrating your tissues, hydrating your towards your feet, towards your hands. And just simply beginning with setting an intention internally, not just with the physicality that we are clearly altering in this practice, but the mentality of maybe surrendering into the practice, gently observing your breath, Take a few more moments here, noticing any of the articulations in the ribs, upper back. If it feels like it's tightening those areas, let go of the belt. Let your arms stretch open. And maybe you heard that cue as let go of your belt, even though you weren't necessarily needing to. Feel the opportunity when the hands hold and when the hands let go. The legs could stay extending if they're straight. Offer the feeling of reaching into the heels, but not trying to tighten up the thighs. Just feel that reach through the feet. It is an activating position for the legs. Now, if your knees are bending and that feels better in your back, you can have your sand on the very top of the hips or onto the ribs. I like them both. So with the awareness grappling into your breath, inhale through nose for 4. Try to let the belly fill up at the lower quadrant. And then as you exhale out for 5. A few more moments opening the chest, lengthening the front chamber of the body. So really kind of feel where the balance is in the mid-chamber and if there is a quality of moving your shoulders back. You know, those that have sand across the ribs, remove that sand and cross the right arm over the upper chest. Reach your left hand to the right elbow. You're going to reach that right elbow and cross it so it's a pretty big deltoid crossover. Should always do a deltoid crossover in the mornings before noon. And cross over the left arm, deltoid crossing. Right hand reaches left elbow, cross the arm. And it's upper body, right? It's upper collarbone, upper ribs. Take one more time each side at your own free will here. So get a feel when you hold the elbow and you cross it, where the tissues motion in your upper sphere of your back. Now your brain hasn't had a lot of turning time. So when we take this position away, you're going to kind of revolve through the corridor of the waist. So we're going to move from supported bridge. If your legs are straight down, take off the sand. Okay. Interlace your fingers, sand is off, and bring both your arms overhead. And feeling when the knees bend and the feet press down, you're in a supported bridge pose. Can you push into your feet, down into the floor, and feel a mild pelvic tilt? So maybe your pelvis feels like it's considering lifting off the props, but use the props to seal the deal, to really let the back space feel opening, especially the lower back into the kidneys. Okay, so when you open out your arms, the area I mean is really right at the bolster, right above the block zone. Try to let that open, kind of like a basin spreading out and around to your waistband. And now we'll lift up our hips enough that we can take the block away and let your body stay with your pelvis slightly lifted. And this is key. So when I roll to the right, my hips are up, and then when I move my body into the bolster now my hip is down, my right hip, but I'm securely connecting across my rib layers, right? I've turned over into the ribs. Now feel how the belly can rotate. With a prop under it, you can smush around your belly organs quite nicely. Give them a little massage. And then as you reach through the waist, you do things you never do in the classroom, I'm sure. Just trying to get into those tissues, okay? So we're going to put either a block, or if you have a ball, okay, to place it on the inside of the left leg. The block works nicely too. As we catch ourselves moving into this frame, I want you to place likely a block overhead would be ideal, over the blankets. sand on the left side, and side sage. Okay, so have it so the sand is at the lower ribs or the hip. Okay, so feeling that this range can reach. Okay, so right arm is between the bolster and the blankets. Having the blankets or towels high enough is crucial here. And feel if the right leg kind of snugs up to your bolster, and feel how the waist extends and the muscles between the ribs actually try to span apart. So they move progressively with your breath. Right? So if my head relaxes, it kind of burrows a little into the blankets. So feel my neck rest. And extending your inhale. And emphasizing as your arm is reaching, and it's either on the block or for some of us it might be behind you. For some it might be alongside you. After the deltoid movements we previously did, it might be a little cranky. So feel what works for your arm to help your core stretch. And it might not be this one overhead, it might be behind you. So coordinate the waist lengthening, the weight into your hip. Feel the motion of the torso with breathing. And feel the waist as it stretches. And let that right leg have a sense of kicking out. So you scissor kick the right leg a little bit. And that puts the weight down into the hip. And it's pretty casual as far as how the waist can turn. The waist can lengthen, it can turn. And give it a little bit of motion. So you're turning a little bit into the bolster with your waist, almost as if the sand would fall inwards to the right side. Now, if you feel the right knee catch and go back into bending, left side is open. So now we're going to turn. So I want you to let your body rotate and explore how you would move to all fours. So we let the sand slough off, the ball off to the side, and then turn so that our hands underneath shoulders. Feel the natural arch in the spine. And then as you hook the toes under and span the hands open, you're going to lift your knees up and stretch back in towards your heels. And feel as the heels reach down that the arms have to alternate, evenly pressurizing down into your hands. You think we're doing this right? So feel where your hips reach back and continue the motion of back reaching. Walk your hands carefully back towards your feet. And I encourage you to work with the reach of your arms and the softening of the back of the legs. And then lower your head downwards, inverting the body. So feel where the roots of the toes are. Feel where your spine unravels. And any loose motions in the back are welcome here. So this might mean that your hands come up to the knees and you round your back, kind of scoop it through the spine, and then let the spine unravel down. You might prefer to hold your elbows and create some nice traction through the wave of the back. Not the way of the back, but kind of the wave of the back muscles into the elbows. Feeling the length of the legs. Now take a few more moments where the arms dangle and the knees soften, and you start to feel how you launch off of your feet. So you're going to move your weight forward, have the hands that creep over the bolster down to the other side. And then as you inch your feet back, so you're in more of an upright push-up position, give it a try that you can achieve that awareness fully through the legs, reaching through the heels. Feel the legs get closer and closer until it's like you have a uni leg. You've got to be, the hips might be lifting up, your upper back might crowd into the pose. And then as you let the knees lower down, feel the tops of the feet on the floor, round your back into cat, chin to chest. Inhale the natural arch of the spine. Exhale, round the back through cat. Feel the chin motion, the spine elongating. And now next time you come back through to a table pose, we're going to go to side sage with the left hip down, okay? So what you're going to do is switch over so you're on your left hip, and you're motioning so that the right thigh weaves back. You might place a ball or a block on the inside of the right leg and add on to your right thigh hip zone. And then as you lower down the left arm between the props, elevate the right arm overhead so it has a reach. Yeah, feel the length of the waist. Feel the left knee bend and draw up towards your bolster. And anything really goes for searching out the waistline, searching across the ribs, feeling the feature of lengthening. Yeah, it's kind of a necessary element to side sage, but not required that you really push into the pose. See if you can let your body naturally elongate through the ribs on its own pace. Slow down. Breathe in. Feel the exhalation relax out of the body. Take a few more moments. If your left thigh wants to lengthen, you might let the left leg kick out and do a little scissor kick. You might stay with the knee bending. And you feel where the waist turns, either opening or rotating a little bit inwards. Okay, this is really a final set here before we come up to the next phase where we're working on reaching through the torso without tightening the back muscles, right? So there's no requirement that you have to grip things up. Feel the length. Breathe. And then let's start to turn to our left arm. And then you're going to come up. You're going to take the sand off. You're going to come around and sit forward of your bolster or your cushion that you're using and place a block center of the knees. So you're forward of your bolster prop. Okay, so let's take this so that we have the block that is narrow between the knees, and when your knees are kind of peaked up, I want you to lean your waist back so you kind of feel the ribs reach back, feel your arms forwards. Inhale, arms lifting up. And exhale, round your back as you lean back. Okay, this is, I think, an important thing to start to hydrate is these front thigh tissues. So when you're leaning back, feel if you can push into the block, but almost like a 30%, maybe 60% actually, pressure, because you have to use some of the muscles on the adductors to actually inquire there. So press into the block and then pull yourself up, take the block out, and grasp onto a belt. This is where the measurement in the beginning was helpful. So if you have a belt that's a buckle, you're going to buckle up so that you've got a wide loop. okay? If you've got a cinch belt or a D-ring, loop it up so that you have a connecting loop overhead. And first thing, and you're reaching the belt as high up on your back as you can. Okay, so you have that reach. You're seated on the floor still. And I want enough of a loop that when I place it to the bottoms of the feet, closer to the arch, right? So find the part of your foot that has a bit of a springy quality, and you're going to let your hands help you come up. So whether they're on your side or they're on the floor, right? So lean back, the feet push in, they go towards you, and then you want to feel the levers press forward, and that interconnectedness of your back flexibility, your hip, your knee, and yes, the feet have a little bit of a squabble with this one. More than ever, that's the place where there's a challenge. So feeling the other parts that you're working to interconnect. So now that we don't have a block between the knees, it's likely that you're not squeezing the same way. The energy that's moving through the front of the thighs is a little bit more calm, but still maybe quiver a little bit. Feel your arms move forwards. Yeah, if it's a little bit of a tricky balance for you, you can always offer this position without the belt behind your back and hold the belt with both hands that's under your feet, whether your hands are closer to you or farther forwards. So with practice, this does help these tissues basically flush. So if your hamstrings will allow you to let the legs be up, kind of upside down, so the thigh tissues can flush out. Or flush out the flush out the flesh of the thighs. That's it. Flush out the flesh. Yeah, so feel a point where the back of the legs either are pretty in a subtle stretch, or for some of us a deep stretch. And then let's bend through the knees, hold onto the belt, and then as you lower them down, we're going to park ourselves up on our bolster. So taking the belt off, take a seat on your bolster, and position yourself so that you have two blocks. Yeah, and the blocks will be forwards. Okay, and we're going to have the props behind you, your blankets can stay the same. I'm going to kind of pivot myself. There might be a little bit of an easier sense of your observation of me. But have a blanket behind you that is, well, actually keep them both, but they're close to your bolster, okay? Keep them both. All right, so crossing the legs, we're going to have the right foot forward of the left shin. We're going to put a sandbag on the top of the right thigh. And with that support, reach your ribs up. Remember, the blocks are forward somewhere in the front side that you can easily access soon enough. But first things first, feel the arms reach. It seems kind of plain, I know, but feel your sitting bones pressing down. And then when you move forward, see if you can hinge from your hips. Lower the arms and get the block so that your hinging is still valid in your hips. Don't want you to flop in this position. No flopping. Okay. So taking some blocks so they move in front, your little stilts. And then as your right leg is kind of opening your hip, this is kind of tricky, feeling the cross-legged position, offering into your right hip first. Blocks could be wide, they could be narrow. This seems pretty comprehensive is when they're a little closer in. I want us to keep it pretty elementary here. A little wide with the blocks or narrow, but not crossing over. So feeling the waist, feeling the arch in the lower back, defining moment of the arch. And feel if you can create a cat spine. So you let your spine move back and feel that you articulate and mobilize the vertebrae. So it's simply a motion of your spine back, rounding. People think of it as flexing your spine. Okay, now slide your blocks in. Okay, feel that back position, and now when you come upright, you're going to move at least one block over to the side so it's easy to get to. And I want you to cross, put your sand on the left leg and cross the right leg over the left. And bring the left hand to the right knee and start to help yourself turn. Now, depending on the knee awareness or the knee issues, you might opt for the left leg to be straight and the right leg to have some assembly like this. So the leg is over, but you don't have to tighten it so much in towards you. So find what works for you. Lower leg straight or lower leg hooked in so that you're in a cross-legged position. Okay, basically with the right foot over on the outside of the left knee. Okay, sand on left thigh, important. Block goes behind you, but first we hold onto the right knee and we feel the waist turning, feel the ribs lifting, and encourage when you rotate that your right hand finds a place. And so I tilted my block up on my blankets. That might not work for everybody. Some of us, longer arm, right, it's going to be farther back and the block might be lower. Okay, so assemble the block so it allows you to feel your right shoulder back. Okay, so left arm hooks to the outside of the right knee and you're twisting the waist. So feel the waist turn, feel the left elbow hook and the left shoulder strengthen. Now, if you're having a little bit of a quibble about this in your left arm issues, see if you can find an exact awareness of this left arm, just like if you were doing like a bicep curl type of position. You're hooking the elbow to the right knee and you're trying to hold that position. Pretty much, that's what it is. I mean, it's all the same exercise programming sometimes. It just has a different nuance in this practice. Okay? So feel where the body turns and maybe the eyes close. Center the ribs. Feel the kind of the altering of your alterations are in progress here. Right hand is on something. Doesn't have to be the block. It could be your blankets. But it does have some place to go. Now from the inside to the sense of your bones, feel your left arm start to straighten. Okay, if this is okay for your shoulder, if it's feeling, oh, that's too much pressure, maybe it's too much pressure, you could hold the knee with your left hand and still work with the core twisting. Okay, before we move out of this one, I want you to let your head tilt left, ear to shoulder. You feel the arm work that is helpful for you. Now come back up center, feel your head neutral, the brain on top neutral. And then as you come around, take the block that's behind you off to the side so you're supported. And when you come around, I want you to find a moment where you have your right foot forward of the left knee, you move your sand aside, and your blocks forward and out. And then you'll take your blanket stack, so you're left with one blanket behind you, and we'll move our right leg back through pigeon pose, so the top of the right thigh lowers down, and the arms are motioning out. Okay, so feel where your upper body is broadening after the twist that we were in, and now it's kind of twisting now a little bit on the left side of the hip. Yeah, it's a little bit of a pull. So consider that when you lower your elbows to the floor or to the blocks, that it's a little bit of a pull around the pelvis, the back of the pelvis, across into your left hip. And keep in mind, in the practice together, you can sample some of these ideas, taking another idea away from it, maybe having your knee in this position is not healthy for you right now. So if you want a variation to work with, those of you staying in sleeping pigeon, stay here. Those that want a variation, you would clear out your space for a moment, and even you clear out your bolster. And since we have this as the focal leg, you'd be on your back. Left foot to right knee, hold the back of your right thigh and squeeze in. Okay, so this might be quite helpful for some of us, or have the foot on the floor and have the left knee opening. And you can always change it up if you decide, oh, I'll take that for a minute or so. Change your pose, okay? So those of us in sleeping pigeon, see if you can maintain a little bit of that cat spine again. So back into your back motioning, so you get the feel of your arms down or on blocks. And your back might be in motion, feeling the contour of the back. Try to give some circulation, right? Try to widen the circulation opportunity in your back waist. You know, hands help bring you up. If you're on your back, you're going to roll back up to sit to the bolster. If you're here, forward motion. Feel where the hands are pressing wide and your elbows bend and squeeze in to bring yourself front. Yeah, and that arch in the back, we're going to kind of loosen that up. So we're going to come up in a round two, Baddha Konasana or cobbler's pose. So place your feet together, so you have your soles of your feet, and the position of the soles of the feet could be forward, diamond shape, or it could be a little closer in. You know, kind of a standard cobbler's pose might be to pull your feet close so you can really see them. But finding where the knees move out. Okay. So feeling where the back kind of ring around the back of the waist. And lifting up in the core body. Feel the ribs moving forwards. Feel the spine ascending. And then feel if you can actually move your hands to your bolster, or if your arms are super long, maybe they're behind your bolster on the blanket. And you're trying to move your knees out. So the motion is the knees out. If my feet are a little farther forward, it's the same motion. I'm not slamming forward onto the legs. I'm clearly trying to work on uprightness here. So the hands pushing down might be helpful assistant. I encourage you to push down into your hands and feel if you can lift up through your back body, not just your rib body, but your back body. So you're trying to keep both these sides, front and back, motioning up. Okay. Now change the leg crossing. So let's bring our right foot in, our left foot forward of the right shin. Add a sandbag to the top of the left thigh. And feel from this shape of your back elevated. And then feel when you start to move into actually cat back. So the hands on the blocks in the front. And the spine kind of wiggles itself back to space in between the vertebrae. Feel how the knees motion. Maybe they try to flap out and up. And where the waist is roaming, could be alternating cat-cow. You might try to stay with a little more of a cat back to hydrate in the back tissues. This is purely for the preparation for the twist, right? So the back muscles between the vertebrae, we're trying to plump those up. So when your twist occurs, you're creating that hydration between into the vertebral structure, right? Into the discs in front. Now feel where that right knee motions out. Move your ribs slightly forward, feel the arch. And then when you start to come up, make sure that you've got at least one block in easy reach. Hands could go to thighs, and then sort out your legs so that they offer you a pretty bright way of transitioning your hips. So you're going to move a sand or a weight to your right thigh. And you'll cross your left leg over the right. Right, these sequencing today is really very symmetrical. I'm trying to keep, we go right, we go left, we keep it really symmetrically tuned in. So on the second side, noticing differences right away, some of us, the right leg may need to be straight. It might be okay bending. Okay, with the left knee, hopefully you can bend it to point it up. So when you put a block behind you, okay, last time we had the 2 blankets, right, when we set up. So if the 1 blanket's not enough, then you can bulk it up with the second one, with the block. We'll find out. So when you start the twist, feel the right hand to that left, just below the knee cap. And then as you turn, we want to feel like that we have an energy in our mid-body. So it's not just like we grab and we torque the spine. We hold, we breathe, and then an exhale, we feel the body turn. Okay, left hand reaches back. Find something for the hand to touch down to, and then hook the right elbow to the left knee and go. Yeah, really go with the turn. Now, I like the right foot straight on this one. This is still helpful, even if it may be a little more basic. I feel a different rooting into my sitting bones for certain. So you could try different ways of setting up your twist. But here we'll feel our back muscles widen and hydrate. So elbow can touch, you're in that bicep strength position, or arm on the right side can straighten. You choose. But if you straighten, feel your body turn. And keep it going. Feel if it can rotate and you maximize that, and then stay with the energy in the belly organs for the twist. Try to stay with it, noticing that the space at the base of the rib chamber and below doesn't necessarily go along for it. So you're trying to encourage the circulation in the organs to be kind of jazzed up, stimulating that core strength, but also bathing and massaging the organs, right? And so the gravity's constant pull on them is starting to be shifted by the practice. Now the right hand on the left knee, feel the body still turn. Move the block off to the side, come back forwards. Okay, and then from here, we take the left foot down in front. We're in a cross-legged position, however you were last few moments. And I want you to move that left leg back to pigeon. If you've decided, I'm going to do the reclining pose, that's okay, right? You might decide to push off sit in front of your bolster and lie back, but keep in mind you're working on the right hip. Okay, so if you're on your back, your right foot is on the left knee, and you're holding at the back of the left thigh to draw the legs in. So it's similar here. If you think on it and you lower down your elbows on your blocks or on the floor, it's the same pose in this direction. It's just that we're putting direct weight into the hip. So sometimes the weight bearing on your hip and knee joint isn't responsible posing. So you might find what is best for you. Feel the top of the back thigh. Feel where the weight is into your elbows and the arch through the spine. And kind of circulate has that word circle in it, right? So You might feel a little bit of motion that rotates or kind of jostles the tissue side to side, especially if you're on your back doing this, right? You can rock a little side to side. So give a few more moments here. Now, when we start the pattern of coming back into our knees, if you're on your back, you're going to roll up and come onto all fours with the blanket under them, but feeling where the hands support your transition. So let's move our blocks to the sides. And the bolster is going to stay with us for a little bit here. We're going to let the toes hook on the left foot. And when you come back, you might be reassembling your props a bit, but you can alternate walking out the back of the legs for a few moments. That's kind of a natural transition, okay? And as you lean into your knees, turn your bolster forward, straight in front of you, vertical, and then have your blankie, so it's either really flat under your knees or it has a quarter fold, so it has a tiny bit of lift. Yeah, and that might help your hips if you have the blanket so it's got some height to it, okay? So let's lower down onto the bolster, and we've got our waist stretching. I want you to try to let your bolster be so it's a little bit on your upper thighs. So push it back so it's like right around the front rim of the hip, okay? So this whole portion of the waist can lengthen, all right? So I've got my bolster under my upper thighs, and my elbows down and into a Sphinx position. Feel how the tops of your feet touch. Be sure, I mean, this is one where you can keep pushing things around until it's perfection, but noticing what is interesting here when you don't move anything else too much around. Okay, feel the elbows pressing down. Feel the arch in the spine. There's no cat options on this one. All right, so feel the elbows pressing and feel the hands open. And noticing that when you slide your hands back on the floor and the elbows by your sides, you're going to emphasize the elbows into the sides and the tops of the feet gently press, and feel when you arch your back and you start to come up a little bit, pressing your hands down. I want you to keep the lift of your upper back really pretty minimal. So if it starts tugging on your spine strings, like it's like, oh, lower back tugging, then get out of the tug of war exercise, come down onto your elbows, and just feel the arch of the back. You know, take this in stages. Slide the hands back, lift the head up, baby back bend, strengthening our spine. Exhale, lower down, slide the hands forward, elbows down, arch the spine again, so you're back to the spine arch. Slide the hands back, let the toes stay relaxed as you bring your elbows in by your sides, come up, so you're in an upward dog, supported, lift gently with the chest. Yeah, see if you can lower your expectations on how the legs are working here, quite yet, okay? So as I feel the tops of the feet down, I'm gonna move my hip bones back. So move your hips back to table, scoot your knees up on the blanket, and then turn your bolster across in front of you, and reach your hands on top, stretching your arms. Okay, feel the brain move center of the arms and the spine stretching back. See if you can get back to that spine reach. I know you might not find cat pose in this because of the arm restrictions, but feel the right amount of chest stretch. You can tell if you take your hands out wider on the bolster, it changes. If you take your hands in closer, just as different. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but you get the idea, differences with the hands. Now, lower the hands down, and let's take an alternating up dog right? No bolster under your hips now, so a little bit more hip allowance. Feel the spine, feel the shoulders back. And then hook the toes under, and as you push your hips back, lift your knees up and feel the heels lifting, and move your brain center between your arms if possible, and then lift your hips up higher and stretch your heels down lower, and feel the arms press the floor away. Yeah, feel a really nice dog pose, like you have a lot of length between the hands and the feet. There's a lot of space. You almost want to make this not such a forward bend, like a standing Uttanasana, but a little more of a wide balance for your arm strength, but also try to use your legs a bit here. Use them a little bit more. Okay, so let's step our feet closer together so you feel your big toes. Your knees might move into touching. Feel your leg muscles, so you're going to lift up through the left leg. So you just kick up the foot. The right foot is responsible for your balance. It's holding you up. Yeah, feel the energy that's reaching through the right foot into the heel. Breathe. Okay. So as you bring your left knee forward, I want you to actually tuck that knee forwards. And then we're going to step that left foot between the hands, or something like that. So you might need some props, okay? So we'll place some blocks below the hands. Now this is where the chair could come in too. So if you've had that chair around, maybe this is too low in the hands. Maybe you've decided, well, what would you do with that, right? You would get your chair or your stool, and you'd use that instead, right? It's kind of nice, actually. It gives me some ease in my constitution, right? It's just helpful. So I want you to aim for this high lunge right now. So when you have your blocks in your hands or you've got your chair in addition, you're going to start to come up. So you're in a high lunge, right? You're in a crescent lunge. So feel your back knee bending. Feel your right heel behind you reaching. You could have your hands up. You could have your hands on your blocks or your chair. All I'm interested in discovering is if the left knee is above the ankle, and I'm really targeting the leg tissues here. Okay. Now lower down. So hands to blocks or chair, seat. Stretch the right heel to the floor and press back so you have length in the legs. Big time length. Yeah, emphasize that length in the back of the left leg. Now if you have the chair, you can bring it closer to you and place your elbows on the chair and really reach back through the legs positionally, and maybe feel like your waist kind of starts to lower towards your thigh. Yeah, chairs are wonderful because they give you a little more space in the back right now. So if you have one, use it. You might start to like them. Okay, more than just for sitting on, right? So feel that back heel stretching through and through. Breathe. Okay, we're going to take a triangle pose for a moment. So left hand on block. Block's going to be high besides the left little toe. Pivot the back right foot open so it turns towards the right, towards the screen if you're looking at it. And then your left hand is on the chair or on the block. Now if you're going to use the chair, you pull it in, put under your left hand, stretch your right arm up. Yeah, if you're going to use the block, all right, keep going. It is a little bit of work, but try to let that right heel behind you press so the toes pivot in a little bit and you can elongate through the side muscles of the hip. Right hand on chair or block, your choose. And then see if you can rotate, but reach the right arm over the side of the face. Yeah, if you're using the chair, you want to make sure it's not too far in front of you so you don't start to go all the way through the splits here. Okay, you want to feel like you actually have your hand onto the chair pushing down. Okay, now as we change, we're going to lower down the right hand. We're going to switch the back heel up. We're going to lower the hands and move the chair a little bit forward so you don't bump your head on it. Place your hands on either the flat blocks, so you could go blocks flat, or hands on floor. And then step the left foot back and feel your feet wide as your sticky mat. Take a wide stance. Let your chest stretch through. If it's too much right now, here's an option that might be really an invitation for most of us, is to bring your knees to your blanket. Watch out if you have your chair though. And then toes towards touching and come back to child's pose. So those that want to go child's pose, lower down, waist down, hips towards feet. Those that are continuing this dog pose, try to stay with the energy of the heels rolling down towards the floor. Okay, so emit that awareness of brain down to make this an inversion. Okay, so feet step together. If you're in child's pose, give it a few more moments and join us when you're ready. Or stay in child's pose. So feet are together, and the right leg lifts up and it reaches so that your weight doesn't push down in your hands like a push-up, but you're moving your right leg up. You're reaching the leg up. The left heel is quite encouraged to stretch the calf. Okay, feel the momentum and then start to move your right knee forward and feel it kick through. Now, if lowering your knees to the floor to step through works better for you, go for it. If stepping through like here goes for it, well, or put your knee on the ground and then step through, okay? So my hands are on my blocks, but I'm going to get my way up to use the chair. So I'm going to start with a low lunge, then start to reach back through the left heel. And I want you to try to keep your back heel reaching this whole time. Yeah, I mean, it's probably a little bit more capable of all this work versus like a wrist. If you think of your extremities and what attaches from the leg to the foot, and for you, your arm to your hand, the places that are vulnerable as we age. So see if you can work with strengthening around your ankle. Really work with the calf here. So my right knee could go farther forward. I could do better with that. I'll try. Okay. So feel through that front leg. You can come up, meaning you could stabilize the feet, feel them in two tracks. Feel the spine, feel all the work you've done all the way to now for the back, and come up to a higher lunge. But work so that your connective tissue is actually elongating, right? So elongate the tissue, especially this back left front thigh. So when you lunge, this back front thigh should be stretching. You should feel that tissue stretch, like you could stretch your pants, right? You're trying to stretch your flexors. Flex the flexors. Okay. Lower hands to chair or blocks. I'm really a fan of chair today. Okay. So I'm going to put that a little closer so I have it. And then I'm going to stretch the back heel down and pivot the foot. And then press down into your right foot and start to turn the weight. And feel if your left arm can move open. Yeah, keep in mind your right hand could be on a block too. Okay, so you could lower your block or you could have it up high. Next to your right foot, now I would put it closer towards the heel when you get up with your left arm. And you might even use the chair after the block. So give yourself opportunity to rotate the range. Feel that left hip open. Feel the right thigh pulling up so that back left sitting bone reaches towards the heel bone. Make the legs powerful and long, holding you up. It can only help. Power up through the left arm. Now press into the back heel and make your way with your left arm overhead, turn. Pivot for a moment so the back heel lifts up. And then as you reach your hands onto your chair with the knees both in a bend, especially the front knee, hands on chair or hands on blocks, pause for a moment. Your front pause. I don't know where my paw friend went, but she took off. So feel where your back heel is in range, and now this is where things kind of get a little bit shifted up, okay? So if you have a chair, you're likely going to need to get your bolster somehow, some way. So what I want you to do is center your knees, your left knee down onto your blankie, okay? Center that knee down. And take a bolster. If you need to get up and move it around and find it, take that time. But get your bolster so it's below the right leg. And then when we shift forward, you can move the chair away for now. Keep it nearby. We'll use it in a very delightful way at the end, okay? So taking that away, and then walk your right foot over to the left side of your mat, toe heel, sink into the bolster, and then swing both legs forward. However you get to sit on your bolster is perfect, okay? So we have our blanket, our knees are both pointed up, sitting, and you're in a bit of a squat position with the legs. So toss the blanket a little bit farther back. Feel where your back ribs, to kind of touch to them, like your back lower ribs spatially. So when you lower back on the bolster, remember, those lower ribs, you want one or two to touch the bolster, okay? So that you create a back bend, you create an opening for your lungs and for your belly. So when you tilt back, make sure you've got your blocks and big time sand, you want your weight. So lower back, you got your belt too. All right, so now as I'm back on my bolster again. Okay, I got my waist opening up. This is another way to do core, but it's so easygoing because all you're doing is having your body lifted up on some cushion and strengthening through the core. So let's try this. Let's take our belt. If it's buckled up, I think it might be okay to have it buckled up on this. We'll give it a try. Okay. Hold on to the belt. Let's try this minus using it for our legs. Just feel how it goes for you. This is generally instructed without that prop. And so we'll see how we do. So I have my feet together, 90 degrees, straight up. Straight-ish. The knees are part of bending. And then I'm going to move my feet forward and feel what transitions in your stomach muscles. Now, you could put sand on them so they don't get so spazzed out in your core work. That's a good idea. But we're going to see what we can do that's very basic. So we're going to move our feet a little farther forward. Okay. Feel your back, rest into the bolster. Try to let it be gentle. And then bring your feet so they're straight up. Inhale, belly full. Exhale, belly draws towards the spine, feet go forwards. Inhale, legs up 90 degrees, belly full. Exhale, feet forward. So you're really going to 60, and you might go all the way forward to 40 or 30, but as if these legs start to get, just ratcheting up, you kind of know the business. The hip flexors are kind of rivals now. You might find that's too far, especially if your upper mid back is starting to grip up. Take one more, lift up, and then bend your knees and move your belt into your right foot. Elevate the belt and the foot, of course, and then loosen up the loop width so that you can place it to the center of the back of your head. So it's going to go to the bump at the back of your head. So when you lift up and place the belt to that space, that occipital, you want to find in this is kind of the final phase actually today. So it's a fairly good amount of time for the phase, but it is very subtle therapeutically. So we have the belt at the bump. If you go above the bump, it's okay. Some of us find that's a better neck stretch. But I want you to try to observe what it's like where it's closer to the occipital ridge, right at the bump. Feel the bump. The belt holds, and then let your arms flow open. If you're going to add sand, add it to the top of the left thigh. If you don't want to add sand, you'll have options. You can bend your left knee this way, you have a little more freedom. But feeling the back of the waist touching to the bolster. And I like the bent left leg today. It just feels kind of nice for my back muscles. And if your neck is in a little bit of a challenge with this one, give it some time. Try not to crank around on it, twisting. Feel the traction. And feel the foot push a little into the belt. Feel the head relax back into the belt. Your right leg is feeling this all the way through the right side of the spine. Brain float. You know, if you have sand on the left thigh, remove the sand and gradually moving your left foot up into the belt. Now, we're not all privy to the exact changeover, I know. So you might find, well, wait a minute here, I'm gonna hold my belt, maybe that's better. Move your head back, play with it. Now, moving your brain back towards your blanket is not a bad maneuver, right? It's quite interesting to feel the differences in the traction in your neck. So the right leg could straighten, okay? The right leg could bend. You could put sand on the very top of that right thigh if you have a bag of weight. Right? You might find going straight and narrow down the leg is useful if you can maneuver that one, okay? And again, if the leg bending works better for you, go for a knee bending. Okay, the upper leg is oftentimes hyperextending on this. So take a moment to feel a micro bend of your left knee. Feel the foot push into the belt, feel the resistance. Let your eyes center back. And feel the belly move with the breath. Arms could be open depending on what you've chosen for your prop support. But let the arms go out to the shape of a T. Now feeling the right thigh lengthening. And those of you that have sand on it, I want you to take a moment when you slide the sand off of your thigh to pull, slide your right foot in and secure the foot down. Soften the left knee and then reach for your belt, slide it off your head and then up your feet go into the belt, both. So push out with your feet along the belt width and let the knees feel a mild curve, right? So you're trying to create a softening in the knees and that brings the pressure out into your belt, right? So try to bend the knees so that it's like natural weight happens. Like trusting, it's a lot of trust on this one, and also surrender. So if your feet feel too spanned out, just make the belt a little bit smaller loop. You could also bend the knees and reach to the piece of the belt that's closest to you. That's kind of nice to do. And that secures the lower back a bit. So give a few moments here, just a few. So the situation changes for the gravitational influence to your structure, but mostly to your or to your lungs and your heart and the brain. That goes all the way up that chain. Okay, heart, lungs, brain, probably. So when you slide your feet together, just pull with your belt, bend your knees, and then slide the belt off your feet, and let's scoop up our sand. Okay, you got a sand bucket, scoop some up. Okay, pack it up in a sack though, and then you'll bring it up to your feet, and you'll press up, and then keep that continuous flow through the legs that we just were working with the legs up individually and then outwards. Now the legs as a unit stretching up. And then see if you can let this slightly active, interactive pose for the organs. Yeah, to turn the way gravity flows through the organs around, all the way around. So feeling that gravity flows in the legs, and gravity of the diaphragm is different, strengthening your core. So deep, thick abdominal muscle, the transverse abdominis, right into the front lower chamber. Try to feel where your feet are vertical. So it's probably a little farther forward than you suspect. Yeah, less of this, let's pull the thighs in type of business, but keep them so they have some travel time and a little bit of challenge with those fibers. And then feel where your arms can move back to cactus if you haven't already. Feel where the back of the pelvis is kind of sloping down towards your upper back. And give yourself a little bit of exploration, indulgence on this one. So feeling if your feet move, feel the relationship to your bolster, how close you are to it. You want it to be merging with you. You really are you're at one with the bolster under your back. So with the hips level here, feel the arch of the spine. And then simply allow time to pass in an inversion. This is the final little phase where we're going to have a couple interesting inversions. So let time pass so that you can spend those moments to really reverse the gravitational pull. It takes time. As the eyes rest and the mind gets a little bit more quiet, one way or the other, it will eventually give way. Now, as you bend through the knees, yeah, gravity's constant pull now is different, right? And when you're bending your knees, you're drawing down. It's a little bit more muscular pace. So feel that muscular pace in your legs and try to stay with the knees bending, not a leg press up today. And then when we bring the sand, move it off of your feet, I want you to bring your hands to your bolster and be sensitive here to the changing support for your back. This might feel like, oh, this has been a big stretch in my low back as well. So when the hands are on the bolster, you're gonna push it forward, push, push, push. And then right before you get from that lower thoracic right to the lumbar, you want that to feel like thick lumbar is now, those boards are down. Okay, the lum boards are down. So bring your feet to Baddha Konasana, knees out, feet together. Feet are in cobblers, okay? Knees are out. Now, feeling how close the bolster might be, it might be in touching reach of your fingers. That's a pretty deep thigh stretch for most of us. So feel that, and if it's too close, you can always push your bolster a little farther forward. You could try pushing it, even a tiny bit, and see, go with sensing and feeling how the legs are. Now the arms don't have to be rigid, you know, we're not trying to make the sequence in that direction. So feel where your shoulders are back. Things you can do without lots of props are like this. You could do this without the bolster, but shoulders are back. Okay, now the energy on the inner thighs is probably valid, that you feel that. Now to be very safe with our knees, what we're going to do is take a block, and when I bring my knees up, I'm going to flow my feet out to about hips distance, place the bottoms of them down, and then immediately recruit my glute muscles. So push into your feet without lifting your pelvis up. Recruit your glute. Glute recruits. Okay. You can feel a little tremor if you just recruit them and you just stay with that. You're not sure what they're getting recruited to do. So I place a block between, or a ball. If you have a ball, you might prefer that for this. You might not. You can choose. Block or ball. It has a little bit of different resistance, right? The ball does. So when my arms are down by my sides, palms open, I'm going to squeeze into the prop between the legs, and then as I squeeze, I'm going to lift up my hips. Okay, so feeling when the hips lift up, that the thighs stretch. So you probably have to do more than you think to lift up your hips. Yeah, my arms are still down by the hips, below the hips, palms open. Now bend your elbows so the hands are up like you're doing a bicep curl on your back, kind of motion. It's kind of rare you do that. And when you bring your hands up, you're going to lower your spine. And then once you get almost to the lower boards of the back, stretch your arms overhead. Really reach your tailbone down and lengthen the arms back. Spine down, squeeze the ball or block. That's the key. You got to squeeze into that. Open up your back. And then as you push in, you're going to lift up your hips. You have your arms hopefully overhead. Doesn't have to be. It's an idea. Palms trying to face down. It's a challenge. Okay. Now arms towards the ceiling. So bring them straight up from your shoulders towards the ceiling. And then lower the spine. There we go. Spine, spine, and then hands to the thighs. Slide the hands down so they're at the very top of your thighs, the thigh lid area, which is kind of with your palm. It's like quads. And then as you lift up your hips, try to slide the hands up a little higher on the thighs. You're trying to get this tissue to move directionally, opposite of gravity, right? It will eventually drop back down because that's what gravity will do. But feel your hips lifting, okay? And now if you have a spare block, you probably have a spare block. You've got two. You're going to slide one under your sacrum and have it flat so it's wide. And then lower the back of the pelvis, the sacrum, onto that block. Try to visualize that as being expansive in the lower back. Okay. So take it in levels. We're going to bring our knees up, feet up off the bolster. Stay here, squeezing the block of the ball, center of the knees. The ball just has a responsive texture. That's the benefit for the pelvic floor, because you'll find that you can find lots of, if you have objects like this in the house, you might be able to find one, not have to go take an extra trip somewhere to get it. So squeeze into the ball or block, okay? Feel the back. If it is starting to arch more, I want you to try to lengthen that, but it's spatially up. Now, bring my hands farther forward towards the bolster. They don't touch the bolster, but they reach. Palms down, elbows down, relax your shoulders. Okay. Move your knees a little bit forward so you're at a right angle and you're stimulating the core strength. So likely the belly bulges on this position. So I want you to try to work with your back, pressing into the floor and the block. Let it center on those objects. The floor is an object too. Okay? And feel the knees scoot back in, scoopy knees. Take the ball or block out between the knees. And then as you bring your feet down to the bolster, push down, lift up the glutes, slide the block away, and then off we go. Spine down, lower down the whole low back. Windshield wiper the knees, and let your arms move a little bit distant from your hips so you give them some clearance. We'll take a few moments here to center across the low back band, actually the whole thoracic to the lumbars, and then into the hip. Yeah, so kind of visualize this mid-back kind of sloping down into the outer hip. It's kind of like a feather. You're going to try to get that space to kind of swing open. So when we come back to center, feel around the left side of your side yard of your mat and clear it out if you got a bunch of stuff over there. Okay? You're going to push your bolster to the left side of your mat. And as you put that bolster over that side, stretch the left leg down, cross the right leg over, add a ball to the sacrum, or if you don't have one, a block is okay, but it's okay without a prop there too. Okay, so if you don't have anything to put there, you can also wad up a towel. Helps the hip. So we add a sandbag to the outer right thigh, or we don't, you choose. Let your right arm open. Feel where your right leg is on the bolster, and you can add a blanket to it. Let's say your knee is not comfortable, put a blanket, wedge it under that right leg. All right, so you can slap on a blanket, and it doesn't have to be perfect. You can kind of modify and get it on top of the bolster, just like so, and place it there. The sand is helpful. So if you have a little bit of weight, bag of rice, this might be a time you go fetch that. And feel where your arm spreads out the ribs and rotates. Such a gentle twist. Sometimes a way to get inside and kind of loosen up the tension is gently. So you're not rivaling up against the resistance, right, if things are really restricted. This is kind of getting into our less restrictive phase, very gentle. Where your brain is turning, give a few slow breaths. Try to deepen the breath and let it escape all the way across town. Let it go. And bring a little concentration to wherever in that right hip could use some ease. Maybe it's to push the bolster on the left side a little bit downwards. Keep in mind there's different corners of the hip. There's as many parts of the hip as you can even visualize when you think of your hip. Even if you don't have an anatomical exact image, there's a lot of sensations in a hip. And then in the low back. So pulling the knee up higher might be easier for some of us on our back than pushing it down. So as the right arm is open, feel it slide down, and then feel your head center, and then moving the ball away if there is one there, okay? And as you take the sand aside, you're going to shift over knees to chest, okay? Hands either under thighs or below knees, just not on the kneecaps. hug them in, hug the knees, and then feel your lower back gradually open. Now change sides, right leg down, left leg crosses over. You've got to get the bolster, and you might have to take 2 trips with a bolster and a blanket. Not a big deal. Yeah, having a blanket is nice, especially if when you move your leg over in this final set here, if you move your leg over and you feel any kind of catch in your hip, if the blanket's not there, it might be too much for the hip to let go. You know, sometimes being gentle is the wise way to go to actually be able to release your issues, right? Try to be gentle with it. So my sand could go on my left outer leg. It could go closer to my hip bone or closer to my thigh bone. Or somewhere in between the two is good too. So take that, give moments, be willing to open the left arm and let your head maybe turn left. Having a little discipline with the extremities, feeling where they reach and range. And the range and condition on each side is likely varied for each of us. So, you know, feeling the situation, feeling any of the kind of snags or snarls that you might have. I mean, shoulders can be quite interesting on these reclining twists. They're pretty comfortable, but you might feel some lurking grade of curious pressure in the shoulders on this one, the blades, or mostly for us, it's going to be the front of the chest, but it is all a shoulder, right? So the front weaving into the back. So feeling your shoulder move into the floor is helpful. But what's that going to be? It's probably going to be your right elbow bends, your shoulder rolls back and down, in towards your midline. We spend so much time forward rounding that it's hard to recognize how essential that is, right, for our chest muscles and then for our breathing abilities and the circulation responsible to the heart and lungs, the arterial flow. So a few more moments. This is very simple. Leg crossover, stretching your hip. Yeah, feel the opportunity for a transition that could be quite inverted, right, for our nervous system, which is generally equals calming. So we'll move the ball, if you have that, we'll move the sand, and we'll take our way to a final pose. So I'd like you to decide if you want to use your chair. I would encourage the chair, the stool, the couch, whatever cushion that you have on top of something is good. If you have 2 bolsters, you can stack them. But we'll come up by drawing the knees in and we'll roll up. If you're going to do a chair shoulder stand, a couple of you might, this is a good time to set that up as well. So this is a close cousin to it. So we'll have our chair, whatever we're going to lie next to in front for our legs. And you'll have use all your props on this that you can to stack things up. So you can use your blanket on top. You can do either sit in front of the chair and take your legs to one side and swing your legs up. That's door 1. Okay, door 2 would be, I get my legs up. Okay, I pull my blanket under my head, and then I push down into my my calves, right? That's a challenge for your hamstrings to get this, but you're going to lift up your hips and put your bolster under. So this is really lovely. After a minute, it gets to be better, but at first it's just getting all the energy in the legs to reverse completely without stressing in the feet. It's different than legs up, right? Because there's no tone that continues to reverberate in the tissues. So you can just let it go, right? You can let the body surrender completely. So I encourage you to be up. Now it does, you can notice if you're talking and doing this, it's pretty, it gets up into the sinuses. It's really clearing. So try to get everything in the base up, right? Shoulder stand would be the same thing. You're getting all the basin, the lower basin up to flush. So trying to get up higher. Now a sandbag, only for those not in shoulder stand, would be useful. You can put the sand so it's either on your ribs, closer to your belly though, because you don't want it to fall into your face. Okay, if it doesn't feel right, don't use it. Okay. Another way you could do is somehow get that up on your shins. Then you'll have to be responsible to get it away. So feeling sand or no sand, you choose. Okay. Stretch your arms so that they feel a connection moving out. Block free. Yep, shoulders back. Try to really open and pin the shoulders back and down. Whatever pose you're in, it's shoulders back and downwards, inwards to inflate the chest. Just like we started. Same element of opening and feeling the breathe motion into the sinuses, right? And as you connect to the sinus region, you'll feel that breath in is at the floor of the brain, right? The sinuses, that range is the floor of the brain. So connect to your belly, open, and feeling it draw back towards the spine. So alternate the pulse of the belly and truly feel your lower back and the lower ribs center into the bolster. If you're not using the bolster, let them center on the floor. You can always take the bolster out. Scan from your feet to your knees, then down the slope into the hips, into that chamber at the very front lid of the thighs, and then allow that awareness to permeate into the belly organs, to the heart, feel the lungs filling up and relaxing on the out breath. Take a few moments here to connect to ourself at the end of the practice. If your awareness has dialed into even a little bit more calm, even a small dosage of centering your feeling of your body and the connection into the mind. Now with the feet completely in a rest mode, if you're in a shoulder stand, you'll start to come down, knees bending, feet on the back of the chair, right? Starting to lower down, bring your feet down and your hands to the side, sliding yourself back. If you're here with the chair under your legs, it's quite different at that point, but up to now when we all land on our bolster, we're the same. Yeah, if you have sand on the shins, in the next few moments, you'll move that aside. If it's on your core, move it away. And then slide your feet gradually in, one at a time. Feel the back lengthen. Feel the feet mildly push, very mild, as if your back is doing the work. And then when your knees pull in towards your chest, see if you can motion at your own pace to the side. and roll to one side and take the hands over. Try to let them push to bring you up. Okay. You might find a seat on your blanket. You might find it onto your bolster if you want to connect. Either whatever direction you're facing is perfect. Doesn't have to be towards the screen. Feel your weight in your hips and the awareness that passes down through the legs. They might feel like they have the best experience right now before they're stepped into. Pre-stepping into your feet, after they've been inverted, feel the awareness in your hips and your knees. If it's any different or if it just feels mildly clear, that's enough. And then bring your brain so the brain bows in towards the heart. Hands up to the heart, surrender there. Breathe in together. And exhale, bowing into the space behind your heart. Namaste. Thank you.